everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we are excited today. We are diving into Bridgerton once again, but this time it's the books, and I'm really looking forward to it. And it might be a little bit more mature podcast. So if you don't like that kind of thing, then it's not going to be for you. But we got tons of other stuff you can listen to on the podcast. But I am film critic Rachel Wagner, and I love reading too, as well as movies. And I'm so excited to have my friend Natasha here to talk about these Bridgerton books.
Hi, everyone.
You were on our season 2 recap that we did, which was so much fun
Yes,
of
yes.
the series. And so now you're here to talk about the books, and I'm really curious for your opinion because you not only are a reader and movie fan, but you also are a teacher of literature.
Yes.
Is that right?
I don't know if that makes me more credible or
I think it should, hopefully.
what was I learning for 4 years? I don't know anymore. Yeah.
So you teach classic literature you teach The Great Gatsby, right? This is the book you're doing right now, is what you said.
Yes. So basically there's like two papers, right? And each paper has like a certain number of books. So currently I'm actually teaching poetry.
Oh, okay.
So I'm teaching
Mhm.
Andrew Marvell's poems.
Oh, I don't know him.
He's the one who wrote that sexy poem
Hmm.
to his coy mistress. Yeah.
Oh. Do the kids hate that?
Um.
They don't
Yeah.
like poetry much these days.
Yeah, that's true. They find him entertaining, but I think
Uh-huh.
because it was the Renaissance, right? It's a bit. I mean, their ideas of love and how men, I think, perceive women are very different from the now, right? So some of the
Mhm.
ideas are quite provocative, and the kids are like, nope, nope, this guy's weird, right? And I'm like, guys, it was a different time. It was a different society, so we have to come at
Yeah.
it from that lens. Yeah.
Yeah, what do you say to the kids that say, "Oh, Great Gatsby, this is so boring. Why do we have to read these books?"
Uh, they say that for all the texts. I think I guess I mean it's easier for like the Great Gatsby because I think they can see like the parallels between the 1920s to the 2020s, right?
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of what was driving that society is also driving our current society, right? The debauchery, the chasing of pleasure, right?
Mhm.
Um yeah, all these things, right?
Yeah.
The non-stop parties, right? So I think they can relate to that aspect of it, right?
You're living a more
um
exciting life than I am.
well, not me. Not me personally.
Just kidding.
Me, Friday night is like me and my husband just staring at each other like, oh, okay. This is our Friday night. But like,
So
I guess for them, right?
right.
Yeah.
So Julia Quinn, she is a romance novelist, and she wrote these books starting in 2000, then going to 2006. So there are some slightly outdated parts of the books, but what would you say to people who hold their nose up at books like these, like romance novels? What would you say?
It's like everyone, right? I don't know. Like I think the it's interesting because it's not like certain movies that I guess, or or books that are catered to men are all that good sometimes.
Mhm.
Like I don't know, right? So I feel that the romance genre gets a lot of beating unnecessarily, right? I think for being unrealistic, or I think for communicating certain kind of tropes, certain kind of ideas, maybe outdated, right? And I think definitely there are some, I think, historical romances, right, that can be a bit uh provocative, right?
Mhm.
Not in the sexy way, but in a way that the men are a certain kind of masculinity, right, that would maybe perhaps be considered abusive. I don't know if you've read like Judith McNaught. Have you read any of her pieces?
I don't think I
Yeah.
have.
So
Yeah.
like, sometimes there are these kind of elements that are not great, right? They can be quite toxic, I think.
Mhm.
But I think ultimately, I mean, that's what lit does. I think I don't think lit is always safe or always standard or always in packaged in the way that you might like. So I think, if you don't like it, then exercise your choice and don't read it. But I think there is a fun and an escapism to Julia Quinn's books. Uh, I think it really kind of makes it very interesting on how we look at, I think, notions of femininity, masculinity, through that lens. And I think how, certain ideas have prevailed till today, right? What
Mhm.
makes a good hero, what makes a good heroine. I think, ultimately it just comes down to characters in a book, right? What makes them good, and I mean, they just
Yeah.
happen to be in a historical romance. Yeah.
Mhm.
So everything else still needs to be good, right? She still needs to write it well.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the books that we kind of hold up as being high literature when they were released were commercial commercial publications that were serials that people read it uh in not fancy magazines and things like that. And so I don't know, I think it's easy to kind of see the things in the past as being like elevated, and the stuff that's our current escapism has doesn't have as much value as it does.
Yeah,
And
totally. I
so
think wasn't there that book, The Mysteries of Udolpho, when it was released, I think it was really considered like, very sensationalized kind of
mhm.
literature, very, but now we look at it as like, part of the gothic
Yeah.
movement, right?
Or even something like Count of Monte
Yeah.
Cristo, or the books like that were serial novels of their day. They were released in magazines.
Yeah. Have
It
you read
wasn't
The
considered
Count
like
of
an
Monte Cristo?
academic book.
That's true, yeah, yeah. Have you read The Count of Monte Cristo in its entirety?
I've tried several times. It's rough. Yeah, I have not gotten through it.
It's really really like thick. I'm just like, I used to like carry it around because I thought it made me seem intellectual. Yeah, I was trying to like read it and finish it. I did finish it, but I don't know. Like the second half of the book, I remember nothing. I think I was just like, let me just finish this book. So yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
We'd like to take a second from this episode of the podcast to celebrate our sponsor of this episode, and that is the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast?
Do you want an inside scoop into what happens on the podcast?
Do you want early access to episodes and loads of cool perks?
Now is the time to become a patron of Hallmarkies Podcast.
By becoming a patron, you get to access our patron Facebook group.
You can request episodes or even be a guest on the podcast.
And most importantly, any patron can join our monthly movie watch-alongs with stars like Paul Campbell, Natalie Hall, and more.
It's as low as $2 a month to join in and become a special part of the Hallmarkies family.
Please consider, and we will love you forever.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
The novels, they are set in the Regency era, so we're talking the Jane Austen era of writing,
Yeah.
and they are a little bit steamy, some more than others, I would
Mm-hmm.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's part of the fun of it. And they're about the Bridgerton family, and they have 8 children. Violet and her husband have 8 children, and the 8th child, Hyacinth, she was still pregnant with Hyacinth when the count died,
Yeah.
when her husband died. And so we get 1 book per child. So that's what we're going to talk about. It's the first 8 books. There's other books, there's prequels, and then there's a Happily Ever After book. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about 8 books for 8 Bridgerton children. And so far in the series, which we'll put a link down to our discussion of series 2, And into my reviews of series 1 and series 2, we talked about book 1 and book 2.
Yeah.
And we don't know if going forward they will stick to the books, because at least with Eloise and Penelope, the characters are pretty different than what they are in the book. So I'm thinking that I don't know if they're going to stick to
Mm,
the book. They
yeah.
also make a way bigger deal of Lady Whistleton in the series than they do in the book. It's pretty much just only in one book that it's a plot part. So that.
Yep.
um, do you think that some people have said they think the series is a big upgrade over the books? What do you think?
um I think I mean I don't know, because I think we have to kind of see more seasons, I think, for me to
Mm-hmm.
make a judgment. But I think that there are certain parts of the series that have elevated, but I don't think like necessarily elevated like made better, but I think it was just adapted to suit the medium, because some things that happen in a book just can't be in a TV series, right? And then especially because it's
Yeah.
a historical romance, they have to be very careful, I think, of what they adapt or what they include, and how they show certain things, right? Because, like, I guess tension and conflict in a book is very different from in a TV arc. So they would
Mm-hmm.
need to be very aware of that when they adapt. So far, I think the first season is kind of on par. I mean, it followed the book quite religiously.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite similar. Um, yeah, but
The
I
second
think
one.
I like the second season more than the book. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
made a bunch of changes to the book. I liked certain things about the series better. I like kind of the fact that they get to their relationship a little bit quicker in
yeah,
the book.
yeah,
So I kind of enjoyed that about the first and second book, is that where there was almost more about a married couple
yeah,
than the will they won't they, but that's
yeah.
also kind of fun too. So it's interesting. We will be talking spoilers a little bit, I think, in this ranking. So if you don't want to hear anything about any of these books, then don't listen. But they're pretty quick, easy reads. I read most of them in May.
I mean, you are amazing. I think I don't know. Like I've read Julia Quinn books, but over like the span of a few years, like I think, because sometimes
uh,
it's very difficult to get to the next book in the series, right? Because I was like, I had no money, so I was I was doing it through the library, so I had to
oh
go to the
yeah,
library and
that's hard.
hope that the next book that I wanted to read would be there. So I read it like through my university years.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, good.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm a pretty fast reader, especially books like this that aren't like super deep.
that that
It's
and the
not like
Count of Monte Cristo.
no.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's true.
And make sure you check out every month. Bree and I do a monthly romance reading wrap up. That's so much fun, where we have one major book that we pick to talk about, and then we also just talk about whatever else we've been reading. I love doing that with her so much. I'll put a link down to that playlist as well. But yeah, I kind of went on some reading binges. I guess it helps being an insomnia sometimes. Insomniac.
Oh wow.
But I really enjoyed these books. I thought they were fluffy, escapist, fun, enjoyable, romantic. I enjoyed all of them on some level. I thought they were fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's her strongest series. Like, I think
Hmm.
there was some. I think because I've read like nearly all of her books, right? So when I was done with this, then I was reading the other ones, right? But this series, I think, is, I mean, her most memorable, and mainly because of the
Hmm.
Bridgerton siblings. They're just so
Yeah.
entertaining. Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
just having it as a series, right? Seeing all these characters that you loved in the previous books still, come back in the next ones are just really nice. Yeah, it's really nice kind of idea.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And we should say that the diversity that's in the series is not in the books. That's
Yeah.
new,
Yeah.
added. So that's
Yes.
fun. All right.
Shonda
Well,
side.
Let's talk about each of the books, and we'll give our ranking of where in our personal ranking the books lie. So we start out with The Duke and I, which is of course about Daphne and
Yeah,
and the Duke.
yeah,
And in this, they start out uh, like kind of having a fake relationship because he's tired of all of these women wanting, particularly mothers, wanting him to be with their daughters.
yeah,
So him and Daphne start this fake relationship, and then things get more serious. They get caught kissing, and he gets challenged to a duel by Anthony, and so they end up getting married. But the reason why the Duke didn't want to get married was because he doesn't want to have children. And he knows that Daphne really wants to have children because she grew up in this big family and everything like that. And yeah, it gets pretty exciting. What do you think about this first book?
Okay, so I think I do this a lot for series, right? I didn't start with the first book when I was reading the Bridgerton series. Um Not by choice. It's because my mom bought me the Viscount Who Loved Me and An Offer from a Gentleman. So she bought me those two books. So I didn't read this until like later. Yeah, despite the fact that it's the first
Uh-huh.
book, which maybe kind of clouded my judgment on it a little bit.
So you read the second book first.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep, and yeah, second, second was first, third was second. Some complicated math, but anyway, so when I did meet Daphne, it was like much later on, right? Even though it was supposed to be like
Mhm.
the first book. It's not my favorite lah of the eight. Yeah. I don't know. I
Where
think
do you
the
have it ranked?
seven.
I have it 7 as well, but I don't dislike it. I enjoyed it. I love a fake relationship. I wish more of these had a fake relationship. I think that is hilarious. I
Yeah.
always love that. So that's probably my favorite part, but it doesn't last that long. I wish that it lasted longer. It would be fun.
Yes.
And
Yes.
obviously there is a problematic element to this book
Yeah.
with her kind of forcing herself on him when
Mm.
he's drunk. And
Yeah.
they made that a little bit tamer in the series. He's has more consent in the
Yeah.
series, but it's still not great.
Yeah.
Um he's totally
Um.
plastered in the book. It's
Yeah.
not great.
Yeah.
Because she's trying to show him that he doesn't need to take the kind of sins of his father
Yep.
onto him and his family. She's trying to show that to him, but obviously, like, that's not the way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing about it is that it on the communication level, right? I mean, the fact that, they were kind of, not forced because they both wanted to be with each other, but, they were compelled to be because they were caught, right?
Mhm.
By Anthony, and then they had to, get married and things like that. So he was already kind of, reluctant because there were certain things that he didn't want to do, right? Because he didn't want to carry on his lineage, right? He wanted the name to die with him, so he came into the marriage with that conception, with that idea that, I'm not going to, I'm sad for her because I can't give her what she wants, right? But I'm not gonna, do that, right? And she is, naive and innocent, and she doesn't know that, but um so they both come in with certain desires that they have, and I guess, that's the thing about relationships, right? They need to communicate it to each other with clarity, right? So he wasn't doing the right thing by not telling her what it entailed with him like pulling out. And
Right.
she didn't do the right thing by later on, forcing him against his will for something that he didn't want. So um yeah, so that generally it should have
Well,
been discussed before.
and she's just like such a naive character
Yeah.
that she doesn't know what makes a baby, and she's 21 at the start of this novel. I mean, I know it was a simpler time, but like, I mean, come on. The Lady Violet doesn't lets her kids down in this respect. She needs to have like a heart to heart before the wedding night and needs to explain.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Because for the men, you don't have to teach them. You don't have to say anything because they know, right? They've been out, they've
Mhm.
been having their little side things, right?
Right.
But Daphne's like the first like daughter, right? That she is getting married off, right? Is marrying off, right? So I can understand why she found it, I guess, difficult because it's like you don't talk to your children about these things. I don't think my parents had the. I mean, even now, right? I don't think they had the like sex talk with me, right? I don't think, yeah, like I think before on my wedding night, I think when we were about to head off, my mom was just like, she told like my husband, she was like, "You take care of her, okay?" And I was like, "Okay." So there wasn't like a talk or anything,
Mhm.
so I can understand, especially because of how it was back then. So I
Yeah.
think Violet, I think, was hoping that the Duke would educate her daughter. And I
Yeah,
mean,
I
that's not
guess it
the
didn't
best thing, huh?
happen.
Yeah.
So it didn't happen. She has to go to, like, the servant and find out. Uh,
I
but
got
I think
Richard.
there's really good chemistry between the Duke and Daphne,
Yes, yes.
and I think in the end, it's actually very emotional that he's able to forgive his father and move on with his wife, and that he really loves her. So I think there's a lot of good here.
Yeah.
I just I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
my 7th favorite.
I mean, yeah. I mean that when you I think when we watched the first season, those little moments were also points of contention, right? The idea of like the
Mhm.
her not allowing him to have consent and things like that. um I think ultimately, I guess the outcome is a good one, right? I think that he was doing it not for himself but for some other warped reason, right? That
Yeah.
comes from childhood baggage and all that. So in the end, I think they did get to a healthy place, right, where he was able
Mhm.
to kind of move past this
Yeah.
baggage, right, and love her and be with her. So I think it's
Yeah.
actually quite sweet in that sense. But yeah, I mean, and they had
Mhm.
so many children. I was
Yeah.
just like, oh,
He really did convert over
yeah.
to her side. That's for sure. All right. So number 2 is The Viscount Who Loved Me. It's of course about Kate and Anthony,
Mhm.
and he saw his parents. His they were had this great love, and then his father died right in front of him because of a bee sting, and so he feels like, I don't want to go through that ache of like losing a great love, so I just want to get married to be practical. But then he meets Edwina and Kate, and he decides to try to pursue Edwina, but he ends up kind of falling for Kate, and this is definitely an enemies to lovers kind of story. It is quite different than the series in a lot of ways. They get together way faster in the book, and so you have more of their actual relationship back and forth as opposed to waiting, 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 waiting. Like the series made you go crazy waiting. That was enjoyable in a certain way. But yeah, I mean, and I really like Kate as a character. I thought she was spirited and fun.
Yeah.
And where do you have this one ranked?
It's number one for me.
Ah, number one.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
favorite. Yeah.
It's it's my number 4,
Yeah, okay.
so I'm right in the
So,
middle. But I
yeah.
enjoyed it very much.
I think it's for the reasons that you said. I love Kate. I think probably my favorite. I think heroine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the female protagonist for the series, right? Um I like how well matched they are. In terms of banter, in terms of stubbornness, right? They're both, so stubborn, right? And I like how they kind of bond, through their past traumas, so they both essentially have faced loss, right? And they kind of help each other overcome it. And
Mm-hmm.
there were just a lot of memorable scenes in the book, like the Paul Mall game. There's even like this little scene where Kate is being like a dutiful wife, and she's like prepared tea for him when he gets back, and then he while he's talking to her, he decides to like he wants to ravish her because she's
Mhm.
looking so like delectable and so cute, right? I think she's wearing like some little hat or something like that, and then he was like, okay, let me like quickly, very like discreetly finish the tea, right, so that we won't make a mess. And I don't know,
Mhm.
and then I think it's the same conversation where he decides that he wants to give Edwina like a dowry, like he wants to help provide for her, and Kate is so overcome that she kind of launches herself at him, and she like destroys the tea, and she was like, oh, thank god, the tea's finished, right? Otherwise
Yeah.
this would be like a big mess. And I don't know, so it's the
Yeah.
one book that I keep rereading. So I think for me that's like probably
Mhm.
that's why it's my favorite, so I really
A
like their interactions. Yeah.
and I love me a rake reformed. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
Yes.
And the scene with the bee is really
Hmm.
great.
Yes.
Very, very well done in this book, and overall, it's just a very great chemistry, and she does a great job with that, Julia Quinn, of building
Yes.
the chemistry, and you are just really rooting for these people.
Yeah, and sometimes
Mm.
so frustrated because
Yeah,
why do they not see
yeah,
what's there? But that's the fun, right? That's the fun
yeah, yeah.
of it. Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast.
Bethany House Publishers and Becky Wade's newest release, Turn to Me.
Summer is the perfect time for romance, and Becky Wade's contemporary romances always deliver.
Her compelling Misty River romance series is set in the picturesque Blue Ridge Mountains and follows the love stories of friends bound by a life-changing event.
The perfect combination of intrigue, romance, and wit. This is a series you will not want to put down.
Get 40% off and free shipping at bakerbookhouse.com.
When you purchase any of the Misty River romance novels with the promo code MistyRiver40.
That's bakerbookhouse.com and code MistyRiver40.
The third book is called An Offer from a Gentleman, and this is basically a Cinderella retelling with Benedict and Sophie, who is the bastard child of a noble man who dies, and then she's basically has an evil stepmother who makes her be a servant, and she ends up going to the ball dressed up, and they have this great kiss, her and Benedict, and then he tries to find her. It's a good book. I enjoyed it, but I don't know, just the whole Cinderella part of it kind of took me out of it a little bit. It was just so much Cinderella that it was a little weird to me, and it's my least favorite of the books. It just wasn't it didn't fit with the whole rest of the series to me.
Okay. It's number 6 for me.
Okay, number 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Sophie as a character. I think she was a lot of fun. I didn't love Benedict either. Like, I understand that that was the society that they were in, but every time he asked her to be his mistress, I thought it was weird. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know, it just wasn't that romantic to me. Be like, "Will you please be my mistress?" And I'm like, like that's not that swoon worthy. It doesn't make you like him that much. And so I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
What you
it's weird, right? Because he only, I think, kind of like stopped on that whole mistress route when he realizes that she's the woman at the ball,
Mhm.
right? And I find it so strange, right? Because why are you pining after this like woman? I mean, it's great. You had a great romantic moment, right? But it's like a few like, years later, and there's this other woman that you really like, right? And I think he has this whole talk with Lady Bridgerton, right? About I think marrying someone from a different social class, right? And I think for him, because of his standing as a Bridgerton, right, and the fact that he's not the first son, right, it would allow him, I think, the agency, I think, to marry who he wanted, in a certain way, right? I mean, the fact that they do get married at the end does justify that, despite the yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like, there's this woman that you like, that you have chemistry with, right? But I mean, it goes back, I guess, to the conventions of the time, right? Maybe it's like, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't, I guess, make sense for him. It's not a typical
Mhm.
match, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they did have mistresses at the time, and it was a
Yeah.
thing, but it just for this kind of swoon-worthy novel, it just wasn't that swoon-worthy. It wasn't that romantic to be like,
Yeah.
"Will you be my mistress?" And I maybe partly I also don't really like Benedict
Yeah,
in the
Sophie's
book.
great. Sophie, I like Sophie, but
Mhm.
I don't know about Benedict.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even in the
he's
series,
okay.
I'm not that big a fan.
He's all right.
So next we have Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. And this is Colin and Penelope's book. Colin, he says at the beginning of the book that he could never be with Penelope. And then he gets surprised by her. This is a friends to lovers story.
Yeah,
And Penelope has considered herself basically an old maid. And she asks Colin to kiss her just so she gets to experience it once.
yeah.
And he's like, whoa, that was really good. And they start to get to know each other better. And I don't love the fact that she had her lose weight in between. Like, I wish that she had just, it would have been, and I hope they do this for the series because I love Nicola Coughlan so much. But I don't love that that's part of the reason he's all of a sudden attracted to her is that she had her lose weight. But nevertheless, I still kind of liked. I'm a sucker for friends to lovers. I liked their dynamics, and so I ended up having this one at fifth place. What
Oh,
about you?
it's number two.
Okay,
Number two for
yeah.
me.
I mean, and this is the one that involves Lady Whistleton because we find
Yeah.
out, of course, that Penelope is Lady Whistleton, and there's all of this scandal and what's going to happen if it gets revealed, and back and forth with that I think is a lot of fun and makes the book pretty enjoyable. What about you? What do you think of this one?
Um, I really enjoyed it. I think, like you said, I am a sucker for friends to lovers, right? And I think because we've been with Penelope, I think we've known of her prior to this book, right? And Colin as well. So we've known of their friendship, and and how much she's like loved him from the beginning. Yeah, but I think for me what made it quite exciting was the whole Lady Wisdom uh
Uh-huh.
revelation, because
Yeah.
in the series we kind of find out quite early on who she
Mm-hmm.
is, right? But at this point we're like, it's quite exciting. And it feels like, and like how would Colin deal with that secret? How would he react to it? So I thought that was quite exciting to watch
Mm-hmm.
unfold. And I was also curious to see what would be what would incite, I think, Colin to kind of fall for her, because he's never seen her in that light before. So what
Mm-hmm.
exactly would kind of bring them together? And I think because they're such great friends, right? They have that chemistry with each other, right? And I like
Mm-hmm.
the whole letter writing aspect of
Yeah,
it.
because they're both writers. So Colin's
Yes.
starting to write too. And so they have that kind of back and forth. And I think he's just really surprised by the kiss. That makes a big deal,
Yeah.
which is fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a thing I guess in the books, right? Where will a couple, I mean, will a couple have like romantic chemistry, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
sexual compatibility.
Yeah.
I think it's a thing, yeah. But yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's from that moment, right? I guess that he kind of sees her as more,
Mm-hmm.
and that attraction starts to build. Yeah, but I really like their connection on that writer level,
Yeah. Me
how
too.
yeah, and how she encourages him, I guess, to pursue his passions, because he's such a lost boy, Colin, right
Yeah.
at the beginning. I mean, his brothers have found their purpose, right? They have their passions, they know what they want, they
Mhm.
have a direction, whereas he doesn't know, so I think all the travels have been a way for him to kind of figure out what he wants to do, and I think
Mhm.
it's it's so nice, I think, that partners can do that for each other, so
Yeah.
I think that's when you can kind of see them as very, very compatible.
And
Yeah.
it is fun that we have gotten to know both of the leads in this
Yes.
book, like
Yeah.
you're saying,
Yeah.
that we're invested in Penelope, we're invested in Colin, and they've in the series they've already set down roots for this one just a little bit. They had that her walking by Colin and him saying the mean thing that he says at the beginning of this book.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, it's gonna be coming up. I wouldn't be surprised if the next 3 books are combined into the next series.
Yeah.
Because
I
I just can't imagine them doing book 3 as its own thing. It's just, I feel like it would feel so weird.
the Benedict book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with the whole Cinderella element. I don't know. I just can't imagine them doing that. I feel like they will blend in these next 3 books into basically one series because they've already
Yeah.
started with Eloise, they've already started with Penelope, and they've already started a little bit with Benedict.
Yeah.
So that's
I
what I
agree. I
think.
agree. I mean, they've been green light for like 3 and 4, right?
Yeah, they
Season three
already
and four.
greenlighted 3 and 4,
Yeah. So I
but
guess they framed it in a particular way that they're gonna kind of construct the rest of it.
mhm.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they should, because I think it's difficult. I think especially the Benedict book. I don't know how they're gonna drag it on for like 8 episodes
I don't know
of
either.
him just like, will you be my mistress? I don't know.
Like it would just be weird to have all of a sudden have this Cinderella season. I don't know, I think. But who knows? They could pull it off if they try. But I think there'll at least be some blending, which we've already seen a little bit of, but I think it'll be more
Yeah.
in the next series. But all right, well, let's talk about To Sir Phillip with Love. And this one is our Eloise story. And we meet so he's been married to this woman, Marina, which we meet in the series, but is not part of the books. And she actually commits suicide, which is, of course, very sad. And he's like super depressed. So Eloise is considered basically a spinster at this point. She's
Yeah.
had lots of offers, but she refuses them. And so she sends a letter to Sir Philip, and he responds, and they have this correspondence. And after a couple of months, he says, what would you think of marrying me? So she decides to go up there,
Yeah.
and they have a courtship, and then they end up getting married, and he is so excited about being married to her. He loves her. Um,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
and uh, yeah, this one I have at 6.
This one is number 5 for me.
Okay, so we're basically the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a barrier in this book is that the Eloise in this book is very different from the Eloise in the series. Don't you
Yes.
agree?
Yes. Yes. She's not the same, definitely. I think uh I mean, she's still, the idea of not being confined to the idea of like marriage, like she still won't do, there's still air of rebellion, right? I'm not just gonna
Mm-hmm.
do something because it's socially acceptable. I don't need, I don't have to get married because, society dictates that I should, right? So which is
Mm-hmm.
why she's so-called a spinster at the beginning of this. Um but I think, the intellectual aspect, right? The political, I guess, part of Eloise that we see in the series isn't really quite here. I think here she's quite actually content to be a mother, be a wife,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is not, it's not it's a good thing, right? It's
Yeah.
just different from what we have seen of her in the series.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's more conventional in this book. She's not as peculiar, I don't think,
Yeah.
as she is in the just different that she is in the series. She stands out a little bit more. Uh but I liked their connection. I felt like a tiny little bit of sort of a Jane Eyre feel in this. Like he felt a little Rochester-y to me.
He was definitely weird. Book fans I think are a bit torn on this book mainly because of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes the way that he was acting, which I think for modern sensibilities is a bit strange, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the time was he just looking, I think, for someone who could take care of his children. Like sometimes I think that's the discourse that's happening, right? You know, they feel
There,
that, yeah,
yeah, there is some of that, I think, and especially when she comes to him and says that that the nannies or governess is striking the children. She doesn't agree with that, and he's kind of dismissive of her opinion, which is frustrating. And but I don't know, just the way that like Rochester talks about Jane as being this like unearthly thing, and this that he's just a little bit obsessed with
yeah,
Jane. I feel like that's also here. I don't know,
yeah,
just in the kind of the way that they are just so enamored with.
yeah, yeah.
I feel
I
like
Yeah.
that's a little bit of that, but
I think, yeah, I mean I liked it. I mean the fact that it's number 5 for me, I think
sure, yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I mean I think I guess because the family aspect was there as well, because her
Yeah.
brothers come, and and then there's that feeling of the Bridgerton atmosphere and vibe, right? So I really like enjoyed all that connection.
Mhm.
But
Me
I
too.
think I also really like the fact that they're both kind of misfits, Sir Philip and Eloise, and they kind of find connection with each other. So I think that's
Mhm.
quite nice, you
Yeah,
know.
I like that too.
Yeah,
And yeah, it was a fun book. I liked them, falling in love and enjoyed it. And all right. So then the next book is When He Was Wicked, which is the 6th book. It's about Francesca. And Francesca, we have hardly seen in the series at all. I think
yeah,
she's had about 30 seconds. So but they just announced that new casting for her. So they're obviously going to make her a little bit of a bigger part going forward. So
nice. Yeah,
she was married and to, I think his name is John, her husband, and he passes away tragically. And she also loses baby, so it's very sad.
yeah,
But their best friend, who's also going to inherit the estate, is named Michael, and he is helplessly in love with Francesca, but he's never obviously said anything because she's married to his best friend and cousin. And so this is their love story, and I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed this one. I have it in number 2.
okay.
What about you?
It's at number 4 for me.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I just loved Michael as a character. I thought he was really, really good.
yeah,
Very swoon worthy.
yeah. Michael was great. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think a really, really good leading man.
Yes.
I think sometimes these Bridgerton siblings have all this, like, reluctance, right? I think sometimes to fall in love, right? So it's
Yeah.
sometimes it's really nice to see um a, a a leading male character like so committed to her, and we
Hmm.
feel so much for him because it's a difficult situation all around, right? You're in love with this woman, but she's with someone else, right? And he's your best friend, and I think there's a lot of guilt as well, right? Because he's like literally like taking his cousin's role and everything, right? In terms of,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I just felt like the agony for him. I'm like, come on. Oh no. And and because she had been married before, you don't have the innocence of the other novels
yeah,
where they're all virgins and they're all which is it has its own appeal, but this was definitely the spiciest of the books.
yes, it is.
For
I mean, it's the
sure.
sexiest. I think, I don't know, my face was as red as the cover of the book at some points. I mean, the things that were happening, right, between them, right, you're just like, oh Lord, right? I need church, but
Yeah, which
yeah,
I felt like you needed. It What is this? This is 6 books in. We needed it. We needed something to kind of boom.
we needed more than the Daphne.
Yeah.
What's happening?
I mean, I guess Francesca should have helped some of her sisters out.
Yeah, I mean, dude, she knows stuff.
She could have told them. But I do think that Francesca does not fit as a name with these.
With the others, right?
It just sounds out of place to me.
I agree.
Yeah, because everything else is a very British sounding name, and Francesca sounds, I don't know, Spanish or something else.
Is that why she gets the spicy book? I don't know. Yeah,
maybe.
But
I don't know. I just really thought they had great chemistry, and you just felt for Michael. And I think this one will make a great series. I hope that it lasts that long enough for them to do this book. Because I think it will be really good.
Yeah, and they really have to cast Michael well. I think it's so important. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So important. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
Then we have book 7. It's In His Kiss, and this is Hyacinth's book.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my favorite. I have this at number 1. I really thought it was fun. Her relationship with Gareth and the whole treasure hunt, trying to find the crystal and the clues in the diary. And I thought they had fun chemistry, and everything with his dad was kind of intriguing and exciting. Lady Danbury, all of that was good. I really enjoyed that. Hyacinth was good. I just thought it was fun.
Yeah, I think among all the books, this is like top tier banter between the two, the couple, right? I could see the spark, verbally, right, physically, it was just really, really enjoyable. And I think I liked the whole treasure hunt element as well. It offered us a chance to see them work together. So I thought that was always interesting to see how that kind of panned out, right? Because I mean, when you work together and then you kind of see each other as like, this person could be my partner, Yeah.
That's true. That's a good point. And all of her brothers popping in, to make sure that everything's okay with Hyacinth, since she's the youngest, and that was cute. And I don't know, I just liked it. I thought it was the best one.
Yeah.
Where do you have it?
I have it at number 3.
3. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
It's the one I remember, because I mean, you've read the books recently, right? For me, it's like centuries ago. So I'm going off based on which are the ones that I really stuck with me through time.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean there are certain parts of the book that I remember. I think there's one part where he's they're about to go, sleuthing, right? On some nightly kind of run, and Hyacinth's wearing this all black kind of
and she's wearing pants,
outfit.
And he's
what?
And
he's like, whoa. And I was like, I mean, I can remember that all until
also,
now.
when they're stuck in the closet, and because the butler's coming, and they're really tight and close, and I don't know, it's super cute.
There's a lot of romantic tension. I think that's what this book did really well, the balance. Yeah.
And I think this will make a really fun series too if they get that far.
Yeah,
really cute.
Agree.
All right, the last book is called On the Way to the Wedding. And this is Gregory's story. So he's the youngest son. And this is basically a kind of left at the altar trope. And he runs in at the beginning of the book. He runs in to the wedding of Lucy and says, "Don't marry him. I love you," and all this stuff, which is so great. And then they go back, and then you get to see how he got there to that point. And basically, he thought that he was in love with Lucy's best friend named Hermione, but it turns out he realizes that he's actually in love with Lucy. And I really enjoyed this one. This one was really exciting. It had a lot of tension of when basically she's like forced, blackmailed into marrying this gay man who just wants a wife for to be on paper, but it's some kind of deal with her uncle, and her uncle, who's raised her. And at first she's like fine with this agreement because she doesn't think she's ever going to meet anybody. And then she gets more and more interested in Gregory, and he doesn't know why she's still going on with this marriage, but she's being blackmailed. And I don't know, I thought it was really fun. And then when he runs in and breaks up the wedding, and then there's he kind of sort of has to abduct her in order to make everything happen. They have to get the uncle to confess, because he says that her father was a traitor, and it turns out he was actually the real traitor. So I have this one at 3.
Okay. I think I don't know if you figured out the math, but this is number 8 for me.
Okay. Yes.
8 book in the series, 8 on my list. I think I didn't like it for all the reasons that you said.
Uh-huh.
on the contrast level, I think because there was just too much action, right, and a lot
Oh,
of like
okay.
like twists, right, which can be exciting, I think, when you read it as like a book, because you're like, wow, what's gonna happen, right, but on a romantic level, I think it failed for me. I think it became more about all these other set pieces rather than, I think, the couple. So I think the
Mm-hmm.
romantic tension wasn't quite there for me, because it was quite obvious that, I mean, there wasn't much obstacles to them falling in love or being with each other, right? So the obstacle was more external, with regard to this villainous uncle, right?
Mm-hmm. And her
Compared to, I
being
think, the other
engaged.
books. Yeah, I think compared to the other books, where I feel like the issue, the conflict is more internal, or which makes it more interesting for me to read, because it's, yeah, I don't know, like, I think it's harder to get over yourself rather than some external obstacle, because,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Gregory's got the Bridgerton power, right, so yeah, I mean, I had no doubt that they would take down um the villainous uncle, but yeah, and I think it wasn't very sexy, this book, as well. I don't I don't really remember much of it, but it could be
Uh-huh.
that I was just really tired for having to chase down all these 8 books. And by the time I got to the end, I was like, oh, okay, Gregory.
Well, they do have to like hide and keep it quiet, and he
Yeah,
sneaks in there and climbs the trellis to her room. And so that was kind of fun and kind of sexy.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I do think that if I was gonna, the reason why this is 3rd and not higher is because he spends a lot of the book in love with Hermione instead of Lucy, and the change kind of happens really fast.
yeah,
But I still just I thought the whole tension was fun, and the so I did enjoy it, and I was
yeah.
like, wow, that was exciting. Uh, so, all right, let's go over our rankings. So, mine, I have It's in His Kiss at number 1. I have When He Was Wicked at 2. On the Way to the Wedding at 3. The Viscount Who Loved Me at 4. Romancing Mr. Bridgerton at 5. Sir Phillip with Love at 6. The Duke and I at 7, and An Offer from a Gentleman at 8.
Okay, so I have at 1 the Viscount Who Loved Me. Number 2 is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, right? Number 3 it's In His Kiss, right? Number 4 is When He Was Wicked. Number 5 is To Sir Phillip with Love. Number 6 is An Offer from a Gentleman. Number 7 is The Duke and I, and number 8 is On the Way to the Wedding.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we want to hear your rankings. So please put them in the comment section. We want to hear what you think of these books. And also you can let us know on Twitter. Are you on, and Natasha, are you on Goodreads?
Yes, I am.
Okay, we'll put your Goodreads and my Goodreads so you can see that. I have my ranking on there. Make sure to follow us on that. And yeah, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for talking Bridgerton books with me.
Yeah, I mean it's so fun to finally get to like fangirl and I think talk about the world, right? With someone who cares.
Yes.
Like nobody
And
cares.
if
Yeah.
you want more book content from us, let us know. I want to know. I mean, it's such a time commitment that's a little bit hard, but let us know what you want, and we would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And Natasha, where can people find you?
Hello. You can find me on Twitter at Lit My Soul. My writings are on culturedvouchers.com, right? We do film, books, TV, games, wrestling, right? Lots of good stuff. I also have interviewed Julia Quinn before. So
Oh my gosh, look at you.
yeah. So you can check out that interview if you want. Yeah.
Cool. We'll put that in the description.
Yeah.
Is that at Culture Vultures or?
Yeah, is that Culture
Oh,
Vultures. Yeah.
cool. That's
Yeah.
neat.
Yeah.
Well, you can find me at Rachel's Reviews all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes and at Goodreads. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast, All Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings and reviews. 5 stars. It helps us a lot. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate that so much. Also, check out the merch store. We have lots of fun designs on there, and our patron group. We're having fun events and all kinds of fun stuff going on in the patron group. Please take a look at that. And thanks so much, Natasha. This was awesome. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everyone.